There's some feedback for the creator of this piece, which is Debra, right? Thank you very much. Everybody who participated. Okay, feedback, here we go.
I just want to thank you. It was my first time hearing it all the way through. I want to thank you from the child perspective, because my mother has schizophrenia, and I am 38, yet I have always lived my life in reverse because of it. And now having heard your piece, it brings a lot of light to why things happen critically. We usually question why, but I realized that our living in reverse was because obviously God knew what I needed to be so my mother existed. And when you're young and you don't understand, when no one's told you, when no one has explained it, or when you grew up in a home where you sweep it under the rug and make it look like it's something else, oh, mommy's tired, mommy's this, mommy's that. It makes so much sense now. And hearing your piece is so much inspiration, because I'm still in it, right? This is not it. My mother is still alive. She's in her 50s, and at the end of the day, it's not easy. It is not easy being a caregiver and carrying that.
Yes.
When you're just now, you're a child understanding why the abuse, why the neglect, why the, at this age, but at this age, you can't catch up with the revelation of that without having to take care of it. Now, what did that to you? So I chose to care for my mother because it was a choice, not a obligation. And I thank you for that piece because it was an encouragement to me.
Thank you. And by the way, my sister is here. Thank you to my sister Linda for being here. And you know, actually, you spoke to the other part of it, for writing it for me. Like I said, in the piece, I presented it in 2017. My mom passed away in 2001, and I had always wanted to write something that humanized her. You understand? You know, because people, you know, when you're people who have mental illness, you know, we got, you know, we couldn't bring anybody in the house, and you know, there's all kinds of things, and you're a child, you know, but that doesn't mean that she was this, you know, whatever negative word, you know, that people might have for people who suffer from mental illness. And so that was the reason I wrote the piece. And again, I want to thank Karen because I presented it. Actually, my husband had done a presentation, and he's an English professor. He'd done a presentation at this conference called the Great Writing International Conference in London, England, in 2016. And when he came back, I wasn't there. When he came back, he said, "You should do something too." This piece was not written. So I wrote an abstract and I submitted them to them, and they said, "Great, you know, come and you can do it. You got 20 minutes. And so this is what I wrote, and I presented it there. It was very well received. And then last year, Karen invited me to a reading, and she said, as long as you name someone who maybe people may not know who are, you know, creative person. And I said, well, I had this piece that I named Phyllis Wheatley. Would that do? And she said yes. And it was on Zoom. And when she heard it, this is how I got here today. She said, this is fascinating. So it wasn't all of this with these beautiful people who said yes, you know. And so I'm just appreciative. Yes, thank you.
Any more comments or questions too? Angel.
Thank you so much for that incredible piece. Incredibly moving, and feel blessed to be here today. I been thinking a lot about my mother and my grandmother, and one of the things that you acknowledged in the piece, and I'm hearing a lot more of us thinking about this, is the Me Too piece, and thinking about acknowledging our own trauma and acknowledging how many of us have dealt with this in our own past and having the courage to come forward and talk to one another about it. And then realizing that it happened to many of our mothers and our aunts and our grandmothers, and they didn't have the space or the voice to say it. And you know, we're sort of seeing that and seeing how that sort of generational trauma affected us. They didn't have that ability, and I'm so grateful, you know, for Tarana Burke and for others of us who've been able to sort of create that community. Just recognizing that our mothers and our grandmothers and others dealt with this and didn't have the ability to have a movement and a sisterhood to be able to share that together. Appreciate that.
That's two. One right here. Yep.
I just have to say that I was led here by the universe because in July I had an experience with mental health issues while I was in Iceland, and I was stuck there in a psychiatric ward having diabetic psychosis, and the language barrier, the color barrier, just catching the end of it, the rhythm, it gave voice to what I experienced, knowing that I wasn't schizophrenic, I wasn't, what's it when you have two, bipolar, but having sleep deprivation and an experience that was different. And coming back home, finally getting back home, and having my children looking at me as if I was this different person. So just being here and hearing your experience about living through that. And in our culture, it's taboo to talk about mental health. It just gives a safe space, and it creates an atmosphere where individuals can now address what used to be taboo, but is now coming to the forefront. And we, as a people, are now coming to grips in the reality of a lot of things that have happened in our lives are birthed out of trauma. And if you don't acknowledge the trauma, and if you don't share your trauma and your story, it can be perceived in ways that mushroom, and you have people whispering when you walk past, or saying, that's the crazy sister, or things like that. And it's like, it's just so welcoming to understand that it's now being talked about. So people are finding voice where they were voiceless. And it's just empowering and affirming. So thank you, universe, because you sent me to that.
Thank you. Tiffany, and then we'll get to you.
I wanna thank you for, I wanna do this without crying, because you've already experienced my crying. I wanna thank you for your words and your presentation. You know, I went through something this summer with my daughter, in mental illness, and she was acting across the country. And one of the biggest things that I take out of what you're saying and what a lot of other people are saying is that how her story became my story, because I was afraid to tell her story. I was afraid to share her story because I thought it was hers and hers alone, but I was the one who's experienced it, which means that it was my story too. And I needed the support just as much as she needed the support. And I'm one of those people who's an advocate for mental health. And that's the crazy part about it, is that, you know, I'm one of those people who tell people, you know, go get there, go to therapy, and, you know, trust the doctors. And I say all these things with them, and I got tossed in the middle of a situation involving someone that I cared about. I retreated backwards too into that same stigma that a lot of people have about mental illness in our community. And I was afraid to open my mouth and say anything so that I could get some kind of help and support myself. And you are one of the people who helped me realize that that's exactly what I was doing. And it's not just her story, it's my story. And thank God she is home now.
Yes.
You know, I thank God that she is home now. But I know that I can't keep silent, just like none of us need to keep silent anymore, because if you keep silent by yourself, you're trapping yourself into this cage, into this locked box where nobody else can get to you. And sometimes you can't get out of that box on your own. So you gotta open your mouth and you gotta speak it out. And remember, it's your experience in it.
Right.
It is your story too.
Right. Thank you. Thank you. Linda?
It's funny how in the last 3 months, this idea of mother and daughters and mental illness has risen in my space. My mother left when I was 7. I got to see her periodically, but I didn't know her. My aunt raised myself and my siblings. I love my aunt to death. She's the most honest person you ever meet. I learned a lot from her. I also saw her struggle with her son, who's mentally ill, but she would not acknowledge it. It got worse and worse and worse until he actually tried to kill him. And he almost succeeded. Now, my mother comes back when I'm 65 years old, when my father and my aunt are gone. I finally saw who she was. I didn't like what I saw. I was very angry. I was disillusioned. I thought she was something else. And I remember standing on the corner because I had just seen her try to take something from me. I couldn't believe what I was seeing and what I was hearing. I was standing on the corner. I said, you know what? I gotta call my doctor because I'm gonna kill her if I don't. I felt this thing coming from my feet. I never thought I could feel that way about my mother. Trust me, I still love my mother, but she's gotta stay where she is. She can't come over here. And you would think that an apology would come out of my mouth about, just leaving her 5 kids. 7 and 3 months old. No, she comes back and steals it. And when I put that together, my head felt like it was going to explode. I recognized that I needed help. That's not the first time, but it's just, I recognize it. And I'm in therapy 11 o'clock every Monday. Every Monday. You got to save yourself. You got to think about it. Can't worry about what other people are going to think, they say, but they're going to do it anyway. You take care of you, because if you don't, you can't take care of anybody else.
That's true.
And it's the bottom line. You feel like you're going to kill somebody, run to a doctor. You know what I mean? I thank you too.
I thank you all for, I have to call them testimonies, I did not know what to expect once we did this. Karen said, okay, there's going to be like a period of time for remarks, a Q&A. I could not have imagined what just happened here. Let me not get emotional, but I appreciate all of you. Thank you. Anybody else?
Anybody else?